I'm Jen Stevenson Zepeda, she, her. I am on the commercial solar team at Revision Energy, and we work in Maine, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. We turned 20 years old this year, and we're on a mission to make life better by building our just and equitable electric future. Thanks. What gives me energy? Good question. Coffee, but also I think two things in what motivates me at work is knowing that there are good people out here doing the hard work, because it's not easy, so trusting that process, and then getting outdoors and spending time in nature is kind of a way to recharge my batteries. Yeah, the solar and energy world is a pretty technical, wonky place, so I try to use metaphors and just explain it really simply, but I think a great place to start with people, if you don't know where they're coming from, is by asking them questions and asking them if they've noticed impacts of climate change, right? Because I think a lot of times we're thinking about polar bears and icebergs, and it's not, oh, the flooding that happened on my street last week during the intense rainstorm. So starting with the problem of climate change is usually a great way to find middle ground, and then explaining how clean energy plays an important part of counteracting. I grew up in the state of Maine, and I grew up on a dead-end dirt road, so whenever we lost power, we were one of the last people to get our power restored. And there was a big storm when I was growing up, the ice storm. I won't say the year because it ages me, but there was a big ice storm where my family was without power for like 6 or 7 days. And it was a pretty dangerous situation. There we were prepared because we had wood stoves to heat and cook on, but it makes me think about people who have been in situations that don't have that. I do have family members in Maine with no wood stoves, and if they lose electricity, what do? You just keep bundling up. And so for me, it hammers home how much electricity is a need, maybe like a public good, and that we all rely on it for our just general well-being.
Yes.
I think I have learned by being exposed to the people and the work that I do, I've learned about the urgency of the situation to go green and do it quickly and at scale. It's the challenge. I've learned a lot about the red tape. I've also learned that a project is always going to benefit when you take the time to build trust, because we've seen, I think, lots of examples of people just kind of coming in and doing what they think is best, and then they inadvertently create all these problems. So I think that when you're talking about bigger scale projects, that it makes sense to make sure that you have that trust there before you really move forward. Because they know what they need. They're the ones impacted by the issues, and if you're going to be proposing a project to be serving them, then shouldn't they be involved in that decision and be consulted in what that looks like? And they're going to know most intimately what are their hopes and fears for this project, and how could that positively and negatively impact them, and build that into the solution so that it is actually meeting what it needs to meet in terms of need. I drove here this morning in my electric car, and I would not have been able to get here without the GPS. I've never been to this location, and so if my phone dies and it's out of juice. I am helpless in a lot of ways. And think about all the things that we do as a society. Everything kind of boils down to, do we have water and electricity? So it impacts us every way, in the most tiny ways that we might not even think about. But when we don't have it, it's very obvious how much we need it. Just something that's on my mind since I've been talking to some people today, that there is a lot of misinformation and just like opportunistic things that happen in the clean energy world, where maybe it's a bad actor or something. So I think it's important for people to try and educate themselves on what's true and what's not true. I know that sounds hard, but like for people to research things, like let's say for example you want to add solar to your house, do a little online research to see like what are the best companies, what are the best options, how does this work, so that you're making an informed decision, because there's so much misinformation out there, it can be overwhelming.